round 3 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup. We're at a snowy Altenberg in Germany, in the eastern corner of the country, close to the border with the Czech Republic, at this former secret East German test track, one of the toughest in the business and a track that has a fearsome reputation. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me is Ben Sanford. And Ben, no matter who you are or where you come from, Altenberg is a really tough track.
Yeah, it is a tough track, and it has a long history of hurting sliders and being a well-known track to be really difficult to get down. It's got a long start, long way to run at the top of the track. You get onto the sled, you really want to relax at the top of the track. Take a nice, easy line through corner 1. Corner 2 can be a little bit difficult. You sort of have to push the sled into it, and then a long straight down into corner 3. And the whole time here, you're thinking about corner 4. Corner 4 is a key corner on the track. It's one of the hardest corners in the skeleton world to get through clean, and you might see a few sliders coming out today on their side or on their back. Through the labyrinth here, you're trying to line it up through each of these corners, staying smooth and calm on the sled, and then down the long straight coming into Kreisel. And again, Kreisel is one of the most difficult corners in the skeleton world. Some big pressures early in the Kreisel. You're going to be close to the roof, and then the exit of Kreisel can really hurt if you get it wrong. A number of athletes have broken arms and broken hips here. Through the bottom of the track, flattens out a little bit here, goes uphill here, and then you're into the bottom section of the track. Just trying to maintain that speed, maintain those aerodynamics, and get across that finish line.
Start record held by Russian Yelena Nikitina, but it's Jacqueline Lerling, ironically a Winterberg local, who has the downtime track record here. And in the snowy conditions in training for the last couple of days, the German girls, perhaps unsurprisingly, have been very quick indeed. Air temperature -7, that's a little ambitious, I think. Certainly was an hour ago, it was -12. Ice -6. Now it's going to be hard and fast, but again, after 2 days of training in the snow, Ben, there's a little bit of snow drifting down this morning. There's Julia Kanakina and the rest of the athletes warming up at the top. It is very snowy everywhere, but is that going to have an effect?
Yeah, it will, and this is another real, common feature in Altenberg. You come here, it's a really difficult track, and you often get the training conditions to be quite different from the race conditions, and so the athletes haven't had the best week of training. It's been snowy, and the track's been quite slow, and then today it's still snowing a little bit, but we'll be expecting the track to be quite a bit faster, and when you have really difficult corners like corner 4 in the Kreisel, it can have a really big effect on how you prepare for the race, and if you're not prepared for that extra speed today, and the race conditions, then you will run into problems.
Jacqueline Lerling there with a smile on her face in her yellow jacket. Everybody's going to have to guess their settings then for the race. 22 sliders going into the first heat. Katie Tannenbaum of the Virgin Islands will be the first off, and Katie Uhlender joins the World Cup. This will be Katie's first international race since the Olympic Games in Sochi in 2014. And in fact, 3 weeks ago, as she started her comeback after American trials, she was in hospital in the US for a liver biopsy, so she's feeling very under the weather. First of our athletes then, from 30 degrees at Christmas and New Year in the Virgin Islands, back down to -12 for Katie Tannenbaum, has raced here never in her career. 1 day on ice before this year. She came here 4 years ago, broke her arm on the first day of training, has never been back. So this is a real monkey off her back this weekend.
Yeah, and it's a good example of how difficult this track can be. If you get things wrong in Altenberg, it really can hurt you. Corner 4 is so difficult here. Can she get through it? Yep, she gets through corner 4 okay. She was having some problems there during the week. So that's a good start to get around corner 4, get going through the labyrinth, and try and build that speed up before you get into the Kreisel.
It's got sort of an old-fashioned feel. There's a couple of places, good long straight here out of Chudai down to the Kreisel, but there's a couple of places where the corners come at you pretty quickly.
Yeah, they do. It's not the fastest track. You're going to reach speeds of maybe 115 kilometers an hour, but the corners in some parts of the track are quite close together, and because it's quite difficult, they do come at you really quickly. And this is a pretty good run by Katie. Yeah. Looking nice and smooth, well, controlling the sled well.
And compared to yesterday, where you could see a clear line in amongst snowbanks, it's a much cleaner track this morning. 102.31. That's going to be a couple of seconds off the front-running pace, perhaps, for today. But, you know, one day here on ice before this season, and she's still got a plate in her right forearm. In fact, you can see she's got a sleeve rolled up. She's going to show us the scars on the camera. She actually asked if she could come here and do some pre-season training, and they wouldn't let her. So this is a big day for her.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to turn up at a track and have 3 days of training, 2 runs a day, trips a little bit at the start there, and then have to turn up on race day and perform. A little bit sideways coming out of corner 4, but I think that's a pretty good run from Katie. Especially to come here after breaking her arm 4 years ago. Like, to get that off your back is big.
Next up from the USA is Kendall Wessenberg. Raced here last year for the first time ever in her career. 18th place finish. But again, you know, it was getting those first night nerves out of the way here, because Altenberg has got that reputation.
Oh, slips at the start. It's a long start here, and you really have to push the sled out. Just falls over a little bit onto the sled. At the top of the track, you really want to make sure that you have a good aerodynamic position on the sled. Keep it on that left wall going down into corner 3. Lines you up for corner 4. You see the athletes using a lot of toe in corner 4. Through 5 and 6. It's a nice line into 7, not touching before 7.
Corner 9, one of the critical exits, perhaps, because of this long straight down to the Kreisel. And a 3-pressure Kreisel. You see the skeleton athletes getting pushed up and up and up.
Yep, and then you see her just coming out of Kreisel there and touching on the right-hand wall. But yeah, Kreisel is a key corner on this track.
105.4 kilometers an hour. He's now up to 68.9 miles an hour. So 70 miles an hour with your chin literally bouncing off the ice. Pretty quick. And a 60-second run, 60.29. We'll see the fastest slides down perhaps today into low 59s.
And the first place at the moment.
Yeah, I'm quite interested to see what sort of times we're going to get today from the top sliders. Training this week has been slow, it's been snowy and cold, and it'll be interesting to see, you know, how well the track crew has prepared the track for today's race.
Take a look at where she slips. It's just that transition of the hands. That left leg goes away. The spike's just not gripping.
Yeah, that left leg is just far too far away from the sled. And then she just falls over and lands on the sled.
You can see from the body language there in the finish hut just what she thought of that. She and the sled going into material checks. Next up for Japan. First time this season for Nozomi Komuro. Last time she raced here was in 2015, and that was on the second tier, the Intercontinental Cup. She's never raced here since then, and she has done 2 other races here. She raced here in the World Cup 2009, 2012. This track's not always on the World Cup campaign. It misses about sort of every 3rd or 4th year.
Yeah, it does. And there's 3 tracks that we use in Germany, and so it's quite good if we can not use every single German track every year.
As long as you're not German, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, and in sliding sports there's quite a big home advantage because you get to train here all the time, and the more you get to slide on the track, the more you're going to understand it and the better you can perform.
2015, in fact, there was no World Cup here because the Junior World Championships were here, and about half our field were in those Junior Worlds. Nozomi not. She's one of the senior athletes. Long, wavy run down to the Kreisel.
Very low line at Kreisel, really keeping it down. But still flopping off the exit and hitting that wall on the right-hand side.
So how does she keep that low line? Is that a sign that she's got too much runner digging into the ice?
Yeah, it could be. She might be using really sharp runners, or she just might be steering a whole lot. So you'll see the athletes today, there's different ways you can steer the sled by digging your shoulder or knee into the sled, or if you really have to, by using one of your toes. And on this track here, a lot of the athletes are going to be using their toes, especially in Kreisel and corner 4.
So she moves into second place between Kendall Wessenberg and Katie Tannenbaum. 22 women in the field, only 20 go through into the second heat, so the fastest 20 will go through, and the other 2, whoever they are, will be dropped. A fellow Antipodean of yours out coaching here this weekend. I think this is her only weekend in Europe as well, Lucy Chaffer.
Yeah, so she just skids the sled there a little bit as well. You can see her like digging her right knee into the sled and also using her foot. Just coming off that corner there a little bit too high.
There's only one of the more experienced women in the field these days. Next up, Marina Giardoni, 14th place here last year for the Swiss. I think that was the worst run of her season, but 6th in 2015. Raced here twice as well in bobsleigh, 2008-2009, pushing Fabienne Meyer. So she's had 4 previous races on this track, 2 as a bobsled athlete, 2 as a skeleton athlete. One of the fastest starters in the field. To see exactly what she can produce here, it might give us an indication of how hard the ice is at the start.
A really quick turnover at the start. It's a nice load onto the sled as well, nice and calm.
Start record 5:33, it's a 5:56, and when it's really cold, perversely you find that the start is a little harder to find the speed in, but the track is a little easier to find the speed, not easier to drive.
Yeah, just skidding a little bit there on the exit of 4. It's really difficult to get a smooth, nice line out of corner 4. Corner 9, like you said, a key corner on the track. You want that early entrance into, that left-hand entrance into Kreisel. It's okay in Kreisel to let the sled be close to the roof. You can let it oscillate through the corner and be up there. You just have to control that third pressure.
There's an expression, it's not who steers the most, it's who steers the least that wins the races. And you'll see that a lot, particularly when you're looking at guys like Martin Stuckers, who seems to just lie down and let it all happen around him.
Yeah, it just makes it look easy.
59.31. That is a good run, and that is comfortably quicker than anybody went by a long margin yesterday, but then much less snow on the track. I wonder whether we're going to start seeing a bit of snow build up. I'm not sure how much they're going to be sweeping in between the athletes this morning, but very little coming down outside our windows. You can see on the cameras almost not a flake in the air, so we should have a pretty even conditions.
Yeah, we should have. See, just coming out of corner 14, just using her toes to correct her balance on the sled and try and get that line into corner 15.
Bear in mind, it used to be the top 10 in the start draw with the top 10 in the world in random order. Now the first 5 are positions 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 in the World Cup. So we get 5 snowplows, if you like, or 5 get the best ice before the top 10 come down. 5th of those is Joske Leconte from the Netherlands, 19th here last year.
Yeah, one of the things that can happen in a skeleton race is the track can slow down from the first slider to the last slider. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of that today. I think the track conditions are going to stay pretty stable throughout the day. The big skid there is going to cost some time, especially when you're skidding at the top of the track.
Interesting how many girls have got a really loose sled, and is that a factor of having to guess what the ice is going to be like without the snow of the previous days?
Yes and no. It really depends on how you want to slide the track and what your approach is going to be. Some of the athletes are going to have sharper runners, some are going to go for blunter runners. And then again, like, you really want to match your equipment to the weather conditions and to the track. And so it's hard for me to say here, you know, what Joske is after, what sort of balance she's trying to get. A little bit of a touch there out of 14 into the bottom part of the track. Not the smoothest of runs by Joske, a little bit skiddy at the top of the track.
19th last year, 19th the previous season as well. Her best result came in 2012, her only other World Cup race in Altenberg, where she was a high of 11th. Not sure that run is going to see her 11th in the first heat. So at the moment in 3rd position, Marina Gilardoni of Switzerland leads from Kendall Wessenberg. And Joske Leconte of the Netherlands moves into 3rd.
11-12 here. These are the 2 corners after Kreisel, and you really want to carry your speed around Kreisel and get a nice line through 11 and 12. Coming out of corner 14, just touches the wall on the left-hand side and then on the right-hand side.
So 5 down, we have 17 to go. Next up, one of the local heroines, although local to her, Winterberg next week, Youth Olympic champion 2012 in girls skeleton, Jacqueline Lurling. Bronze medal here last year. She won the Junior Worlds here in 2015, so she's got plenty of previous. In 6 junior races, European Cup and ICC. Prior to that, she was only once off the podium.
And I think the big question today is, can she win today? She's been fast in training, she knows this track. These weather conditions are going to suit her. The family's in the grandstand supporting her, and
never yet had a World Cup win.
No, today could be the day. It's a nice line out of corner 4, looking nice and calm on the sled.
It's a long way behind, 6/10 off. If the timing splits are right to Marina Gilardoni, that start of Gilardoni's has kept you in front a long time.
But it's going to be after Kreisel where you see Jacqueline pulling that time back.
We saw this so many times, didn't we, with girls like Marion Trott.
Down to 0.17.
Wow. From 6/10 back, she's in the green by a quarter of a second. 1:17.80, 73.2 miles an hour. Huge speed advantage to take a comfortable lead, 58.58. Wow, that lays down a big mark, and no wonder Jens Muller's got a grin on his face.
Yeah, that looked like a really nice run. Couple of small mistakes, maybe a little mistake coming out of corner 14, but nice line out of corner 4. Her Kreisel looked good. Nice.
You see how much extra speed she's got. She comes right up to the finish. She doesn't have to pick a sled and walk up as they were doing yesterday.
Yeah, that's always a nice bonus about being fast at the bottom and having a good time, is you don't have to carry your sled too far.
But again, like Marion, what she doesn't have is that explosive speed at the start. But she's tall, she's got a lot of mass, and boy, this girl can drive.
Yeah, and you want to have a good start. Like, you want to be able to be competitive at the start. That's one of the, I would say, the 3 things in skeleton that you need. And her start's good enough that she's still in first place at the moment.
Next up, last year's winner. Laura Dees sporting a brand new and rather impressive helmet livery. So the girl originally from Wrexham included. She's in fact raced here 6 times. Her only career win came here last year in the World Cup. So she's got plenty of experience on this Altenberg track. And if she can rekindle the performance of last year, she will be absolutely over the moon. Ben Sanford, she's kind of the other side of the coin to Jacqueline Learning. She explodes at the start. Can she keep that speed on board?
Yeah, can she? And we're about to find out right now. A little bit of a mistake coming out of corner 2. Last line 3 into 4. Oh, that's high. Oh!
That's trouble.
I hope we've got a camera angle on the exit of 4.
She was 6/10 up. What's it going to be if she gets out of corner 9? It'll be possibly half of that. 2600's not even half of that.
Good around Kreisel. Just all depends on how much speed she's lost from that mistake in corner 4.
Into the red. But will she still be in contention at the bottom? 600 behind. And speed at the bottom from Jacqueline Learling, 73.2, 3 miles an hour slower for Laura Dees. She'll be 6/10 back at the line, 8/10 back at the line. Wow. Some of that went away very early in the run, Ben. Mistake in the first couple of corners is always one nail in the coffin, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and then a big mistake in corner 4, and you have that mistake in corner 4, and when you're on the sled, you can just feel that speed draining away, and it's pretty demoralizing. You know you've got the rest of the track to try and do something, but just too high here on the exit of corner 4, and just hitting the beginning of corner 5, and it just throws you onto your side. Yeah, oh. Yeah, that's the scorpion leg over.
She goes out of shot. Her backside is on the track, not her runners, and it's not a fast way down. Yikes, trying to carry the speed a little too far. Well, next up is her compatriot, Lizzie Arnold. Didn't race here last year. She was at home enjoying life. Got married last summer as well. Last time she was here in December 2015, she was second to Maria Oliver, who was also a first-time winner here in Altenberg.
Lizzie's a fantastic athlete, and it's great to see her back on the circuit this year and doing well and enjoying skeleton again.
Wearing the yellow vest of our World Cup points leader.
Nice early entrance into corner 4. Yeah, that's a nice exit of 4. Nice and low. Not looking like she's doing too much on the sled, but controlling it at the same time.
And it does look like she's never been away. She says the hardest thing of being back is not the sliding. That much is fun. It's the discipline of having to do things at certain times of the day, which she hasn't done for 12 months. I hate that. That's not good. Ooh.
Yeah, a bit of a hit there out of Kreisel. Very low line of Kreisel. Through 13, 14. A lot of pressure on 13, which throws you into 14. And it's important on 14 to get that line into 15. There's a little uphill section there, and you just don't want to get that wrong.
Into third place, but 3/4 of a second back on the left, coach Eric Benotus. So she lies third, Marina Gilardoni in second, 100th ahead of her, but Jacqueline Lurling in a Usain Bolt style, 3/4 of a second clear.
See Lizzie just coming out of Kreisel here, just a little bit high on the end of Kreisel and just touching that right-hand wall. It's often quite jagged there. The bobsled's hit there as well, and it doesn't look like it hurts, but it can hurt quite a bit.
Just looked for a moment there like it had knocked the wind out of her sails, but the smile's back on her face again. It's interesting, isn't it, how a year away can just clear the mind and kind of bring back the love of the sport. Next up is Annie O'Shea from the USA. She's raced here 8 times in her career. In fact, she may be the most experienced Altenberg slider in this women's field. Only 2 World Cup races last year. Her best result was of her career here in Altenberg was 12th position. 5:73, another good solid start. Lurling starting 6:06.
A bit early into corner 4 there. A little bit high on the exit, but got away with it. Through the labyrinth. 5, 6, 7, maybe to 9.
Hard to exaggerate how different the track looks today. Not a flake of snow on it. Yesterday, that straight would have been white with a little grey strip down the middle. And that meant if you went even a couple of inches out of the line that everybody else was using, you got into the snow and just hit the brakes.
Yeah, snow has a huge effect on skeleton. The more snow there is in the track, the slower you're going to be. And that's when it really pays to be heavy.
The lighter the athlete, the worse you're affected as well. As Coach Tuffy Latour, as Annie O'Shea slides into 5th position. If she can end up in there, that'll be a big improvement on her previous best Altenberg race.
7.6 the time for
12th place in last season's race. That was December 2015, end of, well, the first race of last season, in fact.
Here we have Kreisel, the 3 pressures in Kreisel. Second pressure here, using her toe to keep her down, or not be too close to the roof. Third pressure of Kreisel is the key one, I would say, and that lines you up for the exit and gives you a nice line into 11 and 12.
Carry all that speed out, use that oscillation to your advantage. Next up, Janine Flock has only raced here 5 times in her career, but that goes back a long way, including the World Championships in 2008. Best result here, 6th place in the 2013-14 season. Grunberger, who's coached almost every nation and almost every athlete in this field at some stage or other. Former multiple medalist in men's skeleton for Austria, now back as the Austrian coach.
Track is clear.
It's really important once you push the sled to get onto the sled and just be calm straight away. You want to have that adrenaline and that anxiety at the start to allow you to push hard and fast, and then as soon as you land on the sled, you need some sort of technique to be able to relax instantly. And the more relaxed you are when you're sliding, the better you're going to be able to control the sled and the faster you're going to be able to react as the sled's going down the track. And Janine's very good at that. She's a good slider. She's had some fantastic results in recent years.
Yeah, last couple of seasons she's really hit the sweet spot in her career, and this is definitely at the top of her arc, isn't it?
That's a nice line through Kreisel. I like that line through Kreisel where you see the athletes oscillating a little bit. I think if you control it too much in Kreisel and you're too low, you don't carry the speed around the Kreisel.
Still in the lead. Now she drops just 700s behind Jacqueline Lurling, 70.8 to 73.2. Nobody's got remotely close to Lurling in speed at the bottom, but it's second place for Janine Flock, and she is halfway between Jacqueline Lurling and Marina Gilardoni, 3600s back. Gilardoni 7300s back. So she's almost exactly mathematically in between first and third now.
Yeah, looked like a really good run from Janine. Maybe a few problems down the bottom of the track around corner 14 and uphill into corner 15. But apart from that, her Kreisel was good. Like, she lets the sled go a little bit there. She doesn't try and control it too much. She's not worried about it being too close to the roof. She gets on that stair in the third pressure.
And some of that has got to be experience, knowing how far you can let it run. Jacqueline Lurling has the experience and the speed here. She leads comfortably. Janine Flock second, Marina Gilardoni in third. Our Olympic champion Lizzie Arnold just ahead of her teammate and last year's winner Laura Dees. So 10 sleds down, 12 to go for the remaining 10 spots in the race. Lelda Pregelena, 5th place here last year. 2015, she was 4th on this track in the Junior World Championships. So she's got good memories of this track. 5 races here in her career, which is as much or as many as all of the Germans, barring Jacqueline Lurling.
Yeah, the Latvians have always done pretty well on this track. I think it has some similarities to Sigilda. Sigilda's a track which isn't too fast, but it's got some tough corners in there, and similar to Altenberg.
The Cold War sliding era, Sigilda was the home of the Russian bobsleigh operation. Most of their drivers and athletes were Latvians. It came as quite some surprise to the Russians to find out that the DDR had built this track. Nobody knew it existed outside of DDR.
Rough coming out of Kreisel there and through 11 and 12. Moving her feet round, coming out of 14 and uphill into 15. Trying to maintain that balance on the sled and keep it going in a straight line.
And it's these last couple of uphill corners that can really sap speed out of you, can't they? 6th position, but over a second away from the leader.
Yeah, one of the things that doesn't come across on television very well is how the track sort of fits into the hillside. And so you have parts of the track which are quite steep and other parts which are flat or going uphill. And that's going to affect the way that you slide the track as well. Like, you really want to allow the sled to run when it's going uphill. You want to try and steer in the corners and let the sled run on the straights. Just a little bit too high in 11, and that throws you across into 12, and then you can see her using her left toe as she comes out of corner 12 to try and stay off that right-hand wall.
Dirk Matchen's former slider holding the sled for the next of our German athletes, Tina Hermann. Now, Tina is the most experienced slider probably in the entire weekend. She's had 14 international races here, so Europa Cup, Intercontinental Cup, and now World Cup. And that doesn't exclude other German training or testing. Last year, silver medalist behind Laura Dees. Since 2008, she has only been off the podium once.
Wow, that's
all
amazing.
All appearances here. Yeah, that's just, and again, like I said, doesn't include any German racing.
Yeah, and this is going to be a fascinating battle between Jacqueline and Tina here. Nice line coming out of 4. To 7, looking good. Staying off that right-hand wall there. Taking the lower line in corner 9. And lining up the Kreisel on the left-hand side. Controlling that third pressure, keeping the height on the third pressure, and allowing the sled to come out of the Kreisel. Looking good.
Last 2 World Cup races, as we said, won by Laura Dees last year, Maria Oliver the year before, but prior to that, since 2006, nobody born outside Germany has won a race here. Tina Hermann in second place, only 400ths in front of Janine Flock. So very tight battle on for the medals, but Jacqueline Lurling still a third of a second clear.
And second place at the moment.
Tina starts a little faster, but she's a lot slighter than Jacqueline Learning. But look, she's really frustrated.
Yeah, not happy with that run.
Don't need to speak much German to understand that.
Just coming out of corner 14 there, just touches the wall a little bit on the left, and that throws her across onto the right-hand side. And she would have lost a little bit of time, maybe a 10th. 1500s, complaining about the pressure and the helmet on her face. Yep. There's some high pressures in some of these corners. Corner 13, if you go in late, you're going to get your head slammed into the ice.
Here is the youngest of our German trio. This is Anna Fernstedt, 21 years old, from Berchtesgaden. So Königssee, where the World Championships is going to be, where we also have a World Cup race, her home track. But born in Prague, so actually, geographically, this is her home track. We're closer here to Prague than we are to a lot of Germany. So I was saying to Mark Hooster, the track announcer, you've got to claim her as your own here in Altenberg. And of course, there'll be lots of support for all the German athletes at all the German tracks. Years old, 5th in the Junior Worlds here in 2015. She's had 2 Europa Cup podiums as well in her career. Former gymnast, 6:01. Not an explosive start, but quicker than our current leader, Jacqueline Learling. So is she going to be a factor?
Yeah, and Anna would have spent a lot of time training on this track. The Germans always have selection races on all 3 of the German tracks, and they spend a lot of time training. Yeah, they know this track really well. And so when you have a race like this where the weather conditions during training haven't been the same as on race day, then it's really going to help the athletes with the hometown advantage. Looking good, looking calm on the sled, allowing the sled to flow around Kreisel. It's a nice line out of Kreisel, nice and easy into 11 and 12, looking smooth. It's a good speed out of Kreisel too.
Only 10th fastest at the start. She's up to 9th place on the splits, up to 7th place. Here we go. This is where that advantage, that knowledge comes in below the Kreisel. They just haul everybody else in. 4th place. 6800ths away, so she's 1 spot away. If she can somehow depose Janine Flock, not only would that be her first World Cup medal, but also that would be a German clean sweep, and we haven't had one of those since 2009-10, where Kirsten Simkowiak beat Marion Trott and Anja Huber. Marion Trott losing on this track to a fellow German, that was quite something. Anna Fernstedt is experienced enough here, as you said, that she knows where she's going, whatever the weather. Always a big smile on her face. Great addition to our World Cup team of German athletes. Great addition to the Canadian lineup is Mirela Reniva, whose family moved from Bulgaria to Canada when she was 10 years old. Multiple start record holder. She's had a very starry last couple of seasons in the junior levels.
Yeah, very fast at the start. Really good athlete.
Not sure who brought the donkeys up at the top. I don't think that's particularly appropriate for Mirela's start.
Looking good so far. That's a nice line down into corner 3. A little bit of a skid there in corner 4. Doing a bit on the exit of corner 4 to keep off that left-hand wall.
When she lay down, she had 4600ths ahead of our leader, Jacqueline Learning, up to 5200ths. But it's what she can keep alive below the Kreisel that will decide where she ends up.
Yeah, a little bit wonky in that straight before Kreisel. And yeah, not the best Kreisel. Oh, and that's a bit rough there too.
She's only ever raced here once before. She did Europa Cup in 2015. So this is her 2nd week in Altenberg ever.
It's a track that, if you've only been here for 2 weeks, it's very hard to be competitive. You really need to spend a lot of time on this track to be good at it. Unless you're just naturally gifted and amazing.
Well, but even so, you need the knowledge. Like you say, you know, if it's like a racing car. If it rains all through practice and you've got a wet setup and wet tyres and then it's dry in the race, you've got no idea. If you've never been before, you've got no idea where to go.
Yep.
So she has very limited experience on the track. Still slides into 11th place. So she will make the race.
That's the exit of 4 going into corner 5. Exit of Kreisel here, and you saw her in Kreisel just steering a lot, trying to keep the sled low. but maybe not quite getting the timing right and steering at the wrong time. And then 11-12 is a little bit like being in a washing machine. If you go in late, it just throws you up, throws you down, and throws you out.
And of course, they're carrying so much speed today that they didn't have the last 2 days, so all the timings are going to be a little bit out. You've got to anticipate. Elizabeth Farche from Canada last year raced here into 13th place. She was 20th the previous season. Those are her only 2 races here in Altenberg. So natural progression, 20th to 13th. Should be a bronze medal this time up then if you take a, well, maybe top 6.
Nice position on the sled. You can really see her head is low and close to the ice. Using her toe in corner 4. It's a nice exit of corner 4 though.
No Canadian woman has ever taken a medal here in Altenberg. Elizabeth won the season opener in Whistler, and that just explosion of relief and tension over the last year and more has really revitalised her form. Big oscillations.
Really high in Kreisel there. And you can be really high in the second pressure in Kreisel. You just have to get that steer in the third pressure right. And I think a lot of athletes maybe lose a little bit of confidence thinking that they're too high in the second pressure and then panic a little bit and oversteer the downsteer in the third pressure.
10th place at the bottom of the track behind Annie O'Shea, so she splits the Americans. Annie O'Shea 9th, Kendall Westenberg 11th, Elizabeth Farche 10th, Tima Raniva in 12th position. In comparison to the North Americans, 9, 10, 11, 12, Germans 1, 2 and 4. We have left Whistler and Lake Placid behind us after Christmas, haven't we?
You can see really low after that first pressure in Kreisel, and that's going to push you really high to the roof, and she probably doesn't do enough there to keep the sled low. And then the third pressure in Kreisel really steering down hard at the end.
Hi, Daddy. Hi, Sammy.
She didn't panic when she got up close to the woodwork, but that must have had the wide eyes out on stalks. Jacqueline Erling leads from Tina Herman and Janine Flock. Now we get to our 16th starter, Kimberly Bos of the Netherlands. Another one of our younger sliders in the field, just 23 years old. Didn't race here in the World Cup last year. She was 10th in January 2015. And a Youth Olympic Games competitor in 2012. As a bobsleigh driver with Sanna Decker, her brakewoman, who now is part of the Austrian bobsleigh team.
And coached by Kristen Bromley at the moment.
Yeah, is that Kristen's here, is he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Good.
Coaching the Dutch team.
Kristen and Richard both on tour now then. The Bromley sleds being an awful lot of new Bromleys on tour this season.
A little bit skiddy at the top of the track, using her toes a lot to try and correct the sled and get it going in a straight line.
She has a lead over Jacqueline Lurling of Germany, but now that's evaporated.
Am I correct in saying Kimberly's our current junior world champion?
Yep.
Yeah, she had a really good season last year, and her sliding's really come along in the last couple of years. A little bit loose on the exit of Kreisel. That can be okay if you're trying to let the sled run and you don't have much grip in your runners.
13th place at the moment, so this should see her safely into the second heat. And in fact, it is enough to put her 900ths of a second ahead of her more experienced teammate, Joske Leconte. So I imagine probably after Pyeongchang in just under 400 days, we will have a change of the guard in the Dutch skeleton team. Can't imagine Joske will go another 4 years after Korea.
Yeah, we see the Kreisel quite high in the second pressure, and then using her toe to downsteer on that third pressure, and then high on the exit as well.
Yulia Kanakina, the only Russian woman in the field this weekend. Maria Oliver, a winner here 2 seasons ago. And Yelena Nikitina, incidentally, was in the bronze medal position in the 2014-15 race. Lizzie Yarnell got between the two Russians to prevent a 1-2. What about Kanakina, former ballet dancer. Who knew ballet dancers could sprint the way she does? 5:58, third fastest starter.
Yeah, she has a really impressive start. She's a really good athlete. Young slider with a lot of potential.
Sixth in the Junior Worlds here in 2015. She was 8th in last year's World Cup.
That's high, and maybe on her side into 5 there.
Similar mistake to Laura Dees.
Still holding on to the lead, but you're going to see that reduce a lot in the next split.
32 still. So that's half her lead gone. Will she be in the red out of the Kreisel?
It's a nice line out of Kreisel, just correcting it slightly before 11.
1:05.9, 65.8, 3 miles an hour, slower than Jacqueline Lurling.
A bit of a mistake out of 14, trying to line it up for 15.
Like Laura Dees, corner 4 really started the rot, and she finishes in 8th place. Laura Dees in 7th. So first of our 2 heats in this third of 8 rounds of the BMW IBSF's Women's Skeleton World Cup. And actually, helmet very similar to Laura's, with lots of sky and mountains on. Okay, so the cloud as well there. Maybe some blue sky thinking going on in Yulia Kanakina. If those two can tidy up corner 4, though, they can find a lot more speed here.
Yeah, corner 4 into corner 5 here, and you'll see her. Oh, it's not too bad. Not on her side, on one runner, but.
Do you know what? She's so serious in training. She comes in with a big scowl on her face. She's beating herself up all the time, but actually, when she gets to competing, it's a huge smile.
Got to enjoy the sport.
Yeah, that's right. Let the adrenaline flow. Jane Channel of Canada, 7th. Last season, 11th the year before, 2 ICC races here as well the previous season, so she's got knowledge of the track. And again, a huge starter, this girl.
Yeah, really good at the start. And it's a long start here. So if you keep running next to the sled and you keep accelerating, then that's going to help you a lot at the top of the track.
4900's quicker than Jacqueline Lurling in the start alone. Gets 4 to 5 nailed. 5/10. Don't forget, Lurling still leads. We've seen athletes, Ben, with 6/10 in hand before the Kreisel, who are not in the lead. Wow, where's that gone?
Yeah, the key for Lurling is that she's driving this track so well. She's able to just build speed constantly as she goes down the track. A lot of the athletes here are going to lose time as they go around Kreisel. It's a high line into 13. And then because you lose so much time in Kreisel, the bottom half of the track is reasonably flat, and so you just don't have that speed, and that's where Lurling's going to pull you back and beat you.
12th place for Jane Channel. That's the first slide in a while that's been outside the 60-second margin. So she's behind Elizabeth Vache. The Canadians 11th, 12th and 14th, separated by Kendall Westenberg of the USA. Channel's body language is very different from Kanakina's. Despite that fairly similar run.
Yeah, it takes a really late line into 13. And when you do that, you want to just lie your helmet on the ice, because if it's even an inch off the ice, it's just going to get slammed in there. That pressure comes on so quickly in corner 13. It's a great place to break your nose. That's a
recommendation there from Ben Sanford. If you want a busted nose, that's your place. Jacqueline Narracott had a mishap at the start last year. Didn't make the cut. She was 21st and last. And that was her only ever race here. So the Aussie, a former bobsleigh brakewoman. And her family's got a bit of Olympic history as well. Uncle Paul went to the LA Games in 1984 as a 100 and 200 meter sprinter, and also a winter Olympian in Albertville 92. He was a bobsleigh brakeman for Australia.
That's That's a good bit of knowledge there.
Well, it's not mine. I can't accept credit for that, but that's somebody's been doing some digging. You never said that. I have to quiz you a bit about what a dad did. Did a dad get the brains and his brother get the brawn?
You can just see her moving on the sled there. You can see her like just trying to pull the sled across to the left-hand side. Touches the wall a little bit there before corner 5, but gets away with it. Line around 9 and down into the straight. Not touching any of the walls. That's a good lineup for Kreisel.
See a lot of school children around the track. Over 1,000 kids are coming to the track today as part of a school outing. First week back after the winter holidays, and Friday you're out in the snow again. It's like school hasn't started.
Yeah, it's minus 21 outside.
Yeah. Perfect, they're used to it. Well, she's going to make the race, this time 14th place, so 7 spots better than last season. I was trying to remember this morning, I have a feeling that her sled popped out of the grooves at the start and was just skating all over the place. I think that's what her issue was last year. She's 14th. 19th place is Katie Tannenbaum of the Virgin Islands. Remind you that only the fastest 20 of our 22 go through.
Coming out of Kreisel, and you can see the athletes sometimes, not out of Kreisel, out of corner 4, you can see sometimes when the athletes are coming out of corner 4, they're really trying to see what's going to happen, and so they're lifting their head up off their sled.
Particularly when you've got relatively little experience. Well, here is Maria Montejano of Spain. Jacqueline Lurling still leads, and wearing the Ayrton Senna cap is Martin Rettel, coaching the Belgians, and a whole host of small nation athletes as well. And a lot of them, Reece Thornberry of New Zealand is one of them, a lot of them saying huge difference it makes actually having a team of coaches to work with instead of guesswork on your own.
Oh yeah, skeleton's all about solving problems, and if you have someone there on the outside of the track looking in and able to video for you and help solve those problems, then instead of maybe taking 1 week to solve one problem, you can solve one problem in 1 day. And, yeah, the better the coach, and the better the communication between the coach and the athlete, the better you able to prepare for a race.
Maria, former 100 and 200 metre sprinter, has slid almost exclusively in Europe up until this season, her first full year in the World Cup. So she's done 4 ICC races here, a couple of Europa Cup races as well. So this is her 4th, maybe even 5th race weekend here in Altenberg. So she's got decent knowledge of the track. 17th place on the splits at the moment. 18th place now, ahead of Nozomi Komuro of Japan. This could see her in the race, it does, so she will make the second heat. So Maria Montejano dodges that bullet. There's Reece Thornberry of New Zealand, stroke Oxfordshire.
Good to see him doing some coaching, helping out his teammate from Spain.
Sled doggy. Well, Reece's sister is here this weekend as well, her first time at an ice track, so met her last night. She's very excited to watch the racing. And it's a very different experience being here, particularly when the bobsleighs get on ice and all the noise that you don't kind of get a feeling for sometimes from the TV.
Maria just coming out of corner 14 here and was on quite a good line, but you see the sled just getting away from her and skidding a little bit, touching the wall.
What a big smile. So Sarah Lavrancic, wherever you are, she's missing you on tour. 20 sliders down, the race is full. So for our remaining 2 women, it is go fast or go home. And that's Kim Marmon's next target. 4 Europa Cup races here. Kim just 21 years old. Last year was her World Cup debut season. She was 9th. If she doesn't make the race, that will be a very major shock. I hope that's not the curse of the commentator. If it is, she won't be the only Belgian here who's coming to find me. Again, good start, 5.82, not among the fastest, but enough to put her in front of Jacqueline Lurling, and with some ability to try and find pace down the track.
Bit of a skid there in corner 4. Nice position on the sled, using her toes quite a bit to get the line that she wants. He really had a couple of good seasons. Still a very young slider with a lot of racing ahead of her. Only 3 tenths behind at the moment.
At the moment she's in 16th position on the splits, so this might be close.
She had some nice timing there in Kreisel, especially the end of Kreisel there.
Didn't finish the race in Whistler, didn't make the cut in Lake Placid either. So she could do with this. She's coming back up the order now. 14th place on the splits, 11th at the line. That's much more what we were expecting from Kim at this track. Martin Rettel happy with that.
Kehren und danach sehen
Martin
wir
wearing
noch
his cap and
Katie
protecting himself from all the sunshine today.
Not sure where the Senna cap has come from. She's frustrated with herself.
Yeah, she made some mistakes there, and I think she'll be thinking about the second run and that she can quite easily be in the top 10 if she puts down the second good run.
It looked loose, didn't it? Her
It did look a little bit
all the
loose.
way down.
Yeah, just coming out of corner 14 there. It's not on the corner long enough or high enough, and just touching that left-hand wall, which pushes her across to the right-hand side and using her feet to try and correct.
Wriggling the hips,
But she's happy, she's okay.
yeah, big smile again. And returning to racing for the first time since the Olympic Games in Sochi 3 weeks ago in hospital in the States, having a liver biopsy, has really put a kink in Katie Eulender's return. She is not feeling probably 50%, never mind 100%, but like John Daly, her compatriot, who's just announced that he has returned and is now, well, he's in fact in Park City this week doing North America's Cup. Katie returned for the team trials and has won herself a spot on the US team once more. Former multiple race winner, World Cup champion. Katie's got a big CV behind her.
Yeah, she sure does, and Katie's a fighter and a battler, and you know, a few days in hospital with a liver problem isn't going to hold her back for too long.
Silver medalist here in the World Championships 2008. Her last race here in the 2012-13 season. She took the silver behind Marianne Thies and ahead of her teammate Noelle Piker's pace. So again, she knows the track well, and that's showing. She's still got a good lead over Jacqueline Lurling.
Looking good so far. Nice lines down the track. A few corrections in the straight there. Letting the sled run a bit in Kreisel, which is nice. It's a good exit. Smooth around 11 and 12.
Listen, just to be back on ice and to make the second heat is her target here, to try and heal up and get stronger as the season continues. Up to 12th place on the splits. Will this be a top 10 run at the moment? Just behind Annie O'Shea by 1600, 1700s, no, 2100s.
11th place at
So
the
11th
moment.
place
Also, das
for
war
Katie Eulender. She makes the field. Maria Montejano in 20th place is our final slider, which means that Nozomi Komuro of Japan and Katie Tannenbaum of the Virgin Islands are out for Heat 2.
Quite a few of the athletes today just struggling with the exit of 14. You really want to push the sled around the corner in 14 and just allow it to flow out up that hill and into 15.
To see Katie back and the smile on her face as well. She is in the race, but actually, is she? Is there anybody in the race? This is putting pressure on Jacqueline Lurling, but she responds superbly to that. She has got a big advantage over anyone else in the place. Closest rival is her teammate Tina Hermann. Jacqueline Lurling, bronze medal behind Tina Hermann and Laura Dees last season. And she take her first ever World Cup win here today. Ben, you've got to say, if you were a gambling man, money would go on her, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. 3200s of a lead. Looked really solid in that first run. Knows this track well, knows these weather conditions. It's her race at the moment, hers to lose.
And Tina Hermann might have to worry more about Janine Flock than Jacqueline Lurling. They'll all be eyes on the main prize. Annie O'Shea 10th, Katie Eulender 11th for the USA, with Kendall Westenberg in 15th. Big North American clump there from 10th down to 16th position, 17th position. In fact, 16th equal. No, 16th is Marila Raniva and Jackie Narracott, Kimberly Boss. Down to Maria Montejano, Nozomi Komuro of Japan, and Katie Tannenbaum of the Virgin Islands. Do not get a second heat. Tannenbaum, though, doesn't pick up an injury here. So that broken arm from 4 years ago is done and dusted. She still carries the scar and the medal, but the mental strain of it, she's come back to Altenberg, faced her demons down, and has had a good, clean first run. Clean, safe, And she'll be glad to see Altenberg in her rearview mirror as we head next week towards a slightly more benign track at Winterberg. But first, we have our second heat to get through. Can Jacqueline Lurling claim her first World Cup win here at the toughest of the German tracks? Stay with us to find out.